Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to BBN Live, presented by ECoach. I'm Darren Hedrick with you, and joining us earlier this afternoon, we had a really fun conversation with Coach Lonnie Greene of Kentucky Track and Field and Coach Tim Garrison of UK Gymnastics. They're back with us here for this evening session. And guys, earlier today, we had a lot of fun talking some subjects that I'm sure that the kids enjoyed. We learned about your favorite meals, sports growing up, and everything. But thought we would take this second session now to get to know your programs a little better and what you look for, how you define the success outside of championships in your program. And let's just start first with kind of your career path. And Coach Greene, I'll come to you first. How your road to Kentucky and what it means for you to be the head coach of Kentucky Track and Field.
Man, I tell you, that's a loaded question. but I tell you, I went to Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. I was a member of the track and field program there, and I always, I was a 16-year-old freshman, and always loved the Bluegrass State, and ended up when after graduating went to Southwest Missouri State as a graduate assistant and spent some time there as a full-time coach, and then to the University of Minnesota, where I spent a year. And then from there, I went to Arkansas, where I was there for 17 years. I think 12 of those 17 or 13 of those 17, I was the associate head coach. And then from there to Purdue, where I was the head coach at Purdue. And then from Purdue, of course, here to Kentucky. And to come back to Kentucky, man, that was the cat's meow for me. I always said I would come back to the Bluegrass State. I guess, getting there at 16 and getting here at 16 and developing a longing to be back in Kentucky, man. It was when this opportunity presented itself, it was a dream come true, So when I was hoping, I look at interviewing as competing. I look as interview as a race, and I was hoping I was the one to break the tape, first. And thankfully, I was, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Coach Garrison, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your journey to Kentucky and what it means to you to be the coach of Kentucky Gymnastics.
Yeah, I tell you, it seems like a lot of coaches share a lot of similarities. Their paths are, they start one spot and then they move around, and you continue moving around, and that's no different. Obviously, for me, I started off and I went to school in Texas at Southwest Texas State, which is now called Texas State. Then transferred out to school in California called Cal State Fullerton, and competed there in gymnastics. Not a scholarship athlete; I was a walk-on athlete, and had to had to have a job after after coaching club. So I would go and train and go to school, and then obviously work a job after that just to make sure everything was taken care of, and then. So that, I think, provided tremendous, tremendous growth for me, being able to, obviously be an athlete, but be a student, also have a job and work my way through school. I think that provided a tremendous amount of experience and made me a great time manager, and made me a very appreciative of things when they fell out and when they came to me. So from that point, graduated college and then went back to the club world. I didn't stay in coaching collegiate gymnastics. Club world provided me the opportunity to work with elite athletes and develop elite athletes, and that was fun. So I did that for about 12 years, and then at some point, I started thinking. I think NCAA coaching would be something that I would want to get back into. Had a bit of experience with it at Cal State Fullerton as an assistant for the women's gymnastics team there. And then I decided I wanted to look at it again. So University of Nebraska came calling, and started having conversations with them and started looking at it a little closer, and then decided to take the leap. Went to from California to Nebraska. And you want to talk about a shift. Going from California to Nebraska, that is a shift. I don't think I owned a coat, at least not a real coat, So and we got there late. We got there in September. So my family and I went to the local sporting goods store and said, help us, because we are not going to survive what's coming unless we get some help from you people. So I was introduced to Gore-Tex and found out what down really meant, and so we got outfitted, and anyway, spent very, very productive and awesome years at the University of Nebraska, learning under a great head coach there, and as an assistant, and getting some solid experiences. Had the opportunity to win a couple of Big 12 titles, and and found out what it was to really work with a team, at the collegiate level and at high level. And then the opportunity at Kentucky opened up, and just knowing that it was obviously an SEC school, and SEC gymnastics is, it's the toughest conference, as it is in many sports. It's the toughest conference in the country, and looked at it as a challenge, and said, listen, this is something that if I were to get this opportunity, would be so amazing to be able to go and see if we could build a program in a conference that's the strongest in the country, and see what we could do with it. And that was all before I even came here. I was writing my program plan and thinking about how I would put it together, what I would do similar to the way things were done at Nebraska, some things I would do differently. But then I came and I met the people here. Unlike Coach Greene, who had experience with Kentucky, I had no experience with Kentucky, no experience with the area. And it was really interesting coming here and just spending a little over basically 48 hours here on campus, and meeting some of the people that I met that picked me up at the airport, and the conversations we had, and meeting, people. We went to a softball game, watching, UK softball and Coach Lawson do their thing. And then, having a lot of conversations with a lot of the different people that are on staff. It was a really interesting interview because there were a lot of different people we met. It wasn't just, coming in and meeting one or two people. I got to experience a lot of what University of Kentucky athletics is all about. And I tell you, that was special. It was an interesting time, but it was a special time. And then I sat down and talked with Mitch, and talking with Mr. Barnhart for a good hour and a half, 2 hours was the deal for me. That's what sealed the deal. And as soon as we started talking, I'd say within the first 10 minutes, we just struck up a conversation. We were talking about coaching. We weren't talking about it. We were just talking, and it was really interesting how easy he was to talk to. We shared a lot of interesting, we had a great conversation. A lot of interesting ideas came up. But he put me at ease, and and I think being in this area and being able to communicate with a lot of people while I was here, I think that allowed me to feel very comfortable. And again, it made a very easy decision when he came back and said, "Hey, listen, I think we want you to be the next head coach of our gymnastics team." I was already sold. So offering it to me was special, and it was an easy yes for me. I'll tell you that.
Well, we're certainly glad you're here with Big Blue Nation, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, so it leads me into my next question. When you think about fans watching your respective sports, I think about the elite athletes that you both have in your programs, but also the Southeastern Conference. I don't think I've talked to a coach at Kentucky yet that didn't describe the SEC as a challenge, but that's the competitive nature, right? That's what you want, and the SEC is among the elites. For both of you in your respective sports, I think the SEC is right there among the biggest powers in the country. Whoever like to go.
The SEC. Yeah, well, I know for us, I can't speak for Coach Greene, but I know for us, if you're, you could be like there. I think there was a time this year that we were number 9 or 10 in the country, and I think we were number 4 in the SEC. So if you're looking at, if you're looking at numbers like that, if you're in the SEC right now at the conclusion of the season when it was cut short, everybody in the conference was in the top 18 in the country. So if you've got all of our teams that are in the top 18 in the country, that says a lot about the quality of SEC gymnastics. And it's tough, but yeah, that's what we want. We want tough competition in and out every weekend. You don't look up and go, well, there's somebody coming in that's going to be easy to beat. It doesn't happen like that in this conference. It just doesn't. So, but that keeps us sharp too, and it definitely has an impact on the way we prepare and the way we cycle up and cycle down for competitions. Let's cycle down. Let's make sure that we're well rested, because this is not going to be easy. We're not going to be able to hold people back at the end of the week when we actually go and start competing. So we better figure out how to cycle down and cycle back up pretty quickly. So it's fun. It's challenging, but I would not want to be any other place.
Coach Greene,
those are my sentiments exactly.
Yeah.
Those are my sentiments exactly. The SEC, there is none There's none like it. It's something about competing in this league, the level of competition, the pride taken, when it comes to engaging, a competitor. I mean, it's second. Like you said, you could finish in the top half of this conference and go to the national championships and be a trophy team, if not the national championship team. It's just like that. I remember, while Coach Garrison was talking, I remember one SEC championships. It was outdoors. It was in Fayetteville, and I was listening to the introduction of the 100-meter final, and 7 of the 8 women that were in the 100-meter final they were in the top 10 in the world. This was the conference championship. This was not the national championship. You would think when they introduced them, maybe 2 or 3 might be one of those individuals, but anybody at that point in time could win the 100 meters. Just for example, I mean, I was talking to my boss at the time at Arkansas. I said, "You listening to this introduction?" As the guy went on, he was talking with the number 1, the fastest time in the world this year, and the second fastest time in the world this year. And then this guy was real charismatic, and he was like, "But hold your horses, right next door in lane 5, with the 6th fastest time." And he got the place really, 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 really on edge, and everybody stood up when they were called to the starting blocks. It's the Southeast Conference. Sometimes you'd have to minister to kids or to an athlete after a race, and they got beat, but and then you have to put in perspective for them and say, it's the very fastest time in the world, young man. It's okay. Like, let's use Dwight St. Hilaire. He'd run 44 seconds for 3rd place in the 400 meters at the SEC championships. But that was the 3rd fastest time in the world. You think about that. You know what I mean? The young man who won it would have, if he had executed that time at the Olympic Games, would have won the gold medal at the Olympic Games. It's just interesting to me. The league is, this is not for the faint of hearts. The SEC in any sport is not for the faint of hearts. If you have doubts or second thoughts about whether or not you could do it at this level, you got an issue. In the words of my mama, you got an issue. Not an issue, an issue.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, I wanted to talk to you because recruiting can be so unique for every sport. There's stories or different ways of doing it, different time periods. So I wanted to get a couple of questions about recruiting in here. First of all, because your sports can be international Olympic sports, where do you go to recruit? Where are some of the places you go? Coach Greene, we'll start with you. Where do you go to recruit?
Wherever there's talent, the SEC is like the NBA. When I was a young boy coming up, the NBA was the National Basketball Association. Now the NBA is the International National Basketball Association. That's the way I look at it. It's the Southeast Conference is like that. You have to be able to fire or compete at this level, at a high level. You have to be able to go wherever the talent is and convince that talent that the University of Kentucky is a great place for them to pursue their academic endeavors and also achieve everything they desire to achieve athletically. But if not, you can find talent in the United States, but the level of talent, there isn't enough of that to go around. So you have to go wherever. If that means going to Europe, if that means going to Africa, if that means going to the Caribbean, then you have to do that in order to be able to compete in the SEC. But at the end of the day, you have to have talent to compete at this level. It goes beyond coaching. Anybody can do the X's and O's. Anybody can draw up a training plan and getting a young man or woman ready. But if they don't have, as I call, the engine, they'll compete well for you, but they're not going to be the one that's gonna bring home the prize. You have to have a young man or woman who's got, in our sport, in the sport of track and field, they have to have the engine. And even those who have the engine, you'll be surprised. There's a whole lot of psychology goes into it, as talented as they may be, to getting them ready or getting them to be as confident as they could be to compete at this level.
Coach Garrison, how about you? Where do you go to recruit?
Yeah, we haven't ventured internationally just yet. We haven't felt the need to at this point. There's a lot of talent, a lot of gymnastics talent within the United States, and as far as where that is, it's everywhere. We'll be up in say Massachusetts one day, and then we'll be in Florida the next day recruiting. And I even had the opportunity to, there's a young lady out in Hawaii, that I went out and recruited. And it sounds, don't let that make it sound, don't let that sound too glamorous now, even though I'm sure it does. That was a flight that took place where there were red eyes involved, and for about a 4-hour recruiting trip, it ended up being great, and a lot of talent out there, but it definitely took a while to get there and took a while to get back. That's for sure. But we'll go anywhere. To answer your question directly, we'll go anywhere. So far, non-internationally, but we're not opposed to it. It's just that the fruit is ripe here in the United States, and we've been able to take advantage of that and find what we need here. Not opposed to it. At some point, it may happen, but right now we're really enjoying some of the athletes that we're able to get here in the United States, and and having some success with that.
When you're on the road and talking to your recruits, Coach Garrison, what are some keys for you in recruiting? We talked about the traits or attributes you look for in student athletes earlier this afternoon, but what are some keys, whether that's facilities or the university or the community of Lexington, Kentucky itself? What are some keys for you in recruiting?
All of that. I mean, obviously we're looking for a certain type of athlete too, but as far as how do we present Lexington to them before they actually get on campus, that's something that's incredibly important, because there's not, there are some people that have been through Lexington, some of them come to camps, and some of them have experience, but with some of the limitations we have with communication nowadays, it's it's important that we do what we can to send out information about, hey, here's what our campus is like. Here's what here's what our town looks like. Here's the fact that it's over 300,000 people, and it's there's a lot of rich tradition here, and a lot of experiences you can have here that are just amazing, that are outside just the university itself. Back inside the university, we have tremendous people, from leadership folks to nutritionists to to all the academic counselors, and all the benefits that we have, from the tutors and those types of things that are just, I mean, they're really second to none. If you look at it, they're second to none. So we present a lot of things to people, but I think they have to understand that with that comes some responsibility. So we're willing to to do a lot of things to to attract and to get people to be interested in what we're doing. But as Coach alluded to also, man, they've got to know, they've got to understand that, one, they're going to be in the SEC, and that's some place where you can't hide. I think Cal says it best: you can't hide. You can't hide here. If you're a gymnast at UK, you're going to you're going to be on national television pretty much every time out. You're going to have a camera in your face. You're going to have thousands upon thousands of people. If we're at home, then there'll be BBN, they'll be behind you, and they'll be supporting you. And if you're down at Alabama or Florida, then they may not be behind you, but they'll have 10 to 12,000 people there, and you can't hide. So there's a lot of benefits to being here, but you better be tough. You better be tough, mentally tough, and physically tough, because there's going to be a lot expected of you. You'll be given a lot. There'll be a lot expected of you. And that's one thing that I think that we cover very well. It's like, this is going to be an amazing experience. Here is what you will gain. This will be your experience, from how we do things with our, like I said, with our leadership program, but how we travel, how we treat you. I mean, you are going to be treated, to an amazing experience. You'll be expected to do a lot of things for that experience. So that's one thing that we don't hide from, because the last thing we want is for people to come here and get something different than they expect. We want them to understand prior to coming here what's going to be expected of them and what they're going to get, and for them to take the most advantage of it.
Coach Greene, how about you? When you're talking to recruits, what makes Kentucky special?
It's all encompassing. I mean, the people, more first, most, to me, I'm a people's person. It's about the people in the state. It's about the people at the university. As Tim alluded to earlier, it's the university, the things we provide for our student athletes, the services. I've been fortunate to be at some quite a few other schools in my career, and what we provide here, in my mind, is second to none. But like he said earlier, there is an expectation that comes with it. We'll get all the information that we can possibly get to them about Kentucky, about Lexington, about the institution, about our athletic department, the things we provide for them, to make this experience a good one. But at the end of the day, when they get here, we make sure we find some way or form or time to truly express to them, mom and dad, of the expectation that they're about to take on. And I think, but the reality of it is this: they know the prowess, they know the expectation of the Southeast Conference, they know what they're coming to. And so, you know, if we bring you on campus in our sport in an official capacity, the whole objective at that moment is to convince you to be a part, just let you see what we have to offer. We're going to roll out the red carpet to you and let you see what we have to offer. But in my mind, they already understand the expectation. They know it. But I reiterate it again in the process. At some point in the recruiting process, that will be reiterated, even if we do it jokingly. But at the end of the day, you know, um, I think the young men and women in our sport, who are interested in a SEC school or interested in Kentucky, for example, they know the expectation. I think we've had some individuals who've gone before this class and future classes like Sydney McLaughlin and Jasmine Camacho Quinn and Kenny Harrison. Those individuals, they were just not great collegians. They're the best in the world. Kenny is the best in the history of the sport. I got to tip my hat to Edric Floriel, my predecessor, to be able to get her to come and to do the work that she did while wearing, the uniform. And at the end of the day, I always tell people, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And people know, individuals know, young athletes know across the board. I don't care what sport you're in. When you come to the Southeast Conference, you got to put you got to pull up your bootstraps. It's time to go.
Last question for you, gentlemen. I'm sure some of our fans are wanting to know, this time of year is supposed to be very busy for everyone, and unfortunately, it's not because of our pandemic. So, fans, I'm sure, would like to know, how did you or how are you managing things coming to an end so abruptly? And that's just for you, your staff, and your student athletes, understanding there is a bigger picture for public health, but at the same time, there is the disappointment of not getting to finish a season like you were expecting. Coach Greene, we'll start with you. Just how have you and your program, how have you guys managed the abrupt end in the current pandemic?
To be very honest with you, it was hard because I thought we had a great shot um, when we were in Albuquerque. We were there, and it was the day before competition, and all of a sudden, the announcement came across the PA system, and they literally ushered everybody out of the building. I mean, immediately. It wasn't a matter of time for people to sit there and lick their wounds. It was like, hey, you have to vacate the premises immediately. We had a great, in my mind, we had a great shot at if not at winning, I thought, or even being a podium team. Um, I thought we were set up in all the right areas, and I thought we were ready to compete. I was more disappointed as a coach for the kids, for the young men and women, you know, having to explain that to them and encourage them. And I encouraged them by saying to them, "Hey, man, delay doesn't necessarily mean denial. It may seem hard right now to swallow this, but delay doesn't necessarily mean denial. And if I say if it's to be, we'll get there. We will get there. Um, now we're in a position where we have to, just do what is good by them, making sure they're healthy, making sure we can return. Everybody's going to return, and we're not dealing with any challenges post this pandemic. You know what I mean? Because of something. But they're staying in touch with us. They're communicating. They're texting, Coach, what do I need to do? What should I be doing right now? And I'm like, just rest. Enjoy being home with mom. Enjoy being home with grandparents or the dog, or feed the fish, or whatever the case may be. But you know, they you know they're coping as well as they possibly could. A lot of them were more interested. They knew what we could do nationally, but they were excited about the possibilities of possibly making the U.S. Olympic team or making their country's Olympic team. And with that being canceled, that was a blow to a lot of them. They gave up a lot. They really, for especially for groups of some of the women on our team, they really operated in a very disciplined way going into the indoor championship. Some of the guys on our team, they were competing at such a high level, to be very honest with you. But we'll live to see another day. And Lord's willing, next year, if we can do that and we can get them to the line healthy and we can get everybody to the line healthy, I believe that we will be a part of that conversation. When I say things like this, sometimes people say, "Man, that's a loaded statement you make." No, it's the truth. I mean, we got talent, and it's just a matter of making sure they're ready to go.
Coach Garrison, how about you? How did your program manage the sudden abruptness of the end of the year?
Yeah, for us, it came in waves. They were fast waves, not much space between them, but it did come in waves. We were actually on our bus headed to West Virginia to compete at our last regular season meet of the season. So we were heading east, and then I got a text from the head coach of the program at West Virginia saying, "Hey, listen, our meet's been canceled." So that was the first wave for us. So I had to go up and we told the bus driver, and so we turned that thing around, started heading back to campus, and I went back and told the athletes, and was met with some wide eyes naturally, and kind of questioning, and I really didn't have any answers at that point. So then went back and talked with the staff, and we started shifting around. Okay, listen, we're gonna have to change training now, and now we have a week before SEC championships, and a weekend off, and how are we going to handle, specific to training, how are we going to handle that? And then shortly after that, the SEC championship was canceled, and while we were still on the bus. So then we met again and talked again as a staff and said, okay, well now postseason starts in 3 weeks. So now we need to get our periodization right. We need to make sure that we're cycling the right way, and what are we going to do to handle that the right way? That way we're ready to go when we ramp back up. We're not used to having that period of time off. So that was a challenge. And then once we got back and found out that everything was canceled, now our priorities kind of shifted to, it's unfortunate. We've worked, really, long preseason, long season, competed at a very high level. And now it's all been canceled. And how do you handle that? And more importantly, how do your athletes handle that? Seniors naturally, because their career just ended abruptly. But everybody, really, I mean, it's a year of eligibility for everyone. So how do they handle that? And I guess the only way to deal with that for us was directly and to say, listen, hey guys, it's unfortunate. We've been, we've worked really hard. We've accomplished a lot. But as far as the athletic goals now, they're over for this year, and for some of you, they're over for your career. That's it. So, and trying to deal with that and trying to help them make sense of that was a bit of a challenge, but something that naturally we had to face. In the grand scheme of things, when you start looking at some of the suffering that's going on around obviously around the world, but around our country, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't seem all that important, but it was, and it impacts them directly, and that's something that we needed to address. So moving forward now, we're talking to them about how to stay in tune academically. That's probably the biggest thing. And the way I approach them about it is, listen, we now need to see if we can get our highest GPA. Our athletic goals now are over, as far as maintaining your health and your flexibility and your strength and all that. Keep working on that. Obviously, we don't want to drop off too far in that regard. But really now our competition is now academics, and we're all very competitive and we're all very driven people. So now our goal is, a certain GPA, and we talked about our GPA, and we want to get the highest GPA we've ever had as a program. That's our competition now. That's how we make a lineup for us, is you need to get yourself in the right spot academically. And I realize that'll be a challenge because, and it's not face-to-face anymore. And some of you deal better face-to-face with people. Your tutors aren't face-to-face with you either. Your professors are teaching a different way than they have ever taught. So everybody's adjusting and rolling with things. But at the same time, what you do have is you have time. You have time now. So allot the amount of time to get comfortable with your new way of learning. And so that's what we've challenged them with is, stay healthy, do the right thing, social distancing, make sure that you're handling all that the right way, do your part. But then at the same time, now let's make use of this time and let's be productive, because that's what we do. We're productive. We're challenging ourselves, we're challenging each other, and we want to be productive. And that's the only way right now that we can be productive is really push the academic side of things. And so that's what we've done. It was abrupt, but it is what it is. You got to deal with it. That happens sometimes in life, and it's an important lesson if you're willing to learn it.
Well said. Guys, that'll do it for our time here tonight. Thanks so much for being a part of BBN Live. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
That's Coach Lonnie Greene and Coach Tim Garrison, gymnastics and track and field, our guests here this evening on BBN Live presented by ECoach. Be back with us tomorrow at 2:30 and 8 o'clock. You can find us on the Kentucky Athletics social media pages, Kentucky Wildcats Facebook, and also on Twitter at UK Athletics. I'm Darren Hedrick. Thanks for being with us tonight. Be safe.